No whammies.
What'd you say? Oh, hey guys. What's up? Hey, sorry about that, guys. The first time around, I think I explained it at the beginning of our last broadcast, but we were trying to go outside because we're just trying to be cautious with everything going on right now, but just didn't work out. So we're back in the studio right now. I think the audio and video is probably much better on it this time around. So we just wanted to start from the top. But I just did notice that it's the top of the sixth and the White Sox are winning 5-0. So that gives me a little...
Oh, breaking news out of Washington. Steven Strasburg will not make his anticipated debut tonight.
Will he ever be healthy, that guy?
I'm telling you, dude, yeah. Apparently he has a nerve issue in his hand. So
that can't be good.
Who's starting in? Somebody that the Yankees are gonna ride. His team starter is gonna be Eric Fed.
There's gonna be so many pitchers this year that you've never heard of, that nobody's ever heard of. They're gonna pitch legitimate innings.
I ain't gonna lie, I never knew who the guy was pitching for LA.
The dude with the red hair.
Yeah, wasn't he a rookie?
He was a rookie, and he looked like he was all 21 years old, too.
Oh, now we're live?
Oh, now we're live. Hey!
I was going to say, I never got the notification.
Hey, guys. So we're back in the studio. We tried that outside podcast. Shout out to Steve for accommodating that. We tried to, do a little outside podcast just to keep things safe, but we're back in the studio now. I think we wanted to have good audio and video, and we're just kind of wrapping through the news, and Nick was just pointing out how Steven Strasburg will not make his scheduled start tonight. I'm looking at the White Sox score. It's 5-0 right now. Can't wait to go home and watch this. Dallas Keuchel looking amazing through 6. So yeah, right now we just kind of want to start this one from anew because we realized that audio was terrible last time around. So sorry guys, we're still working this thing out here, but we are back in the stew.
In the stew.
I always like to say that, it makes me feel like a rapper sometimes when I say I'm in the stew, but we did rap a little bit earlier about the current state of affairs for, the NBA and the NHL, which is coming up in the next couple of weeks. They're playing some exhibition. I guess you can call them scrimmage games. I know that right now, baseball is officially back, started on Thursday. And again, we have games all throughout the day and evening today. And then, UFC, we missed a couple of UFC events. There is a fight night tonight, Whitaker and Till. That should be a pretty good scrap. But otherwise, really, we're right in the middle of everything kind of starting back up again. We talked about how the next 5 months is going to be just nonstop sports. And again, we're going to have some sports that pick up pretty quickly after ending the season. So,
hey, not for nothing, but ever since you were doing your mic check earlier, yeah. I've been singing Usher in my head the whole time. When you were going yo yo, so now I got my way.
Yeah, this is yeah. I know exactly. There's always that one.
Why she's so fly, she pees me anytime wanna get freaky. You can get mad if you want to, say whatever you want, but she still gonna give it up. She likes it my way. Hey, you're my way.
Whoa.
Yeah, they don't know nothing about that.
No, they don't. No,
they don't know nothing about that.
Sorry, I'm watching the White Sox progress here.
I'm looking for a stream, dude.
I'm telling you, are you looking for MLB streams?
No, I'm looking for our.
Oh,
there it is, right here. There it is. I found it.
Because I got the little hookup. So I don't know if T-Mobile just recently merged with Sprint.
Welcome, by the way.
Thank you so much. It's been a little bit of a hassle to start off, but I did get a year free of MLB TV.
Welcome, by the way. Plus you'll get 25 cents of free gas per gallon.
Really?
With Shell. Check out that T-Mobile Tuesday.
I'm gonna have to check it out because I'm
download it on your phone.
Tuesday,
you want it.
But yeah, I got the MLB TV. So the thing that sucks though is the blackout rules, because I completely unplugged from cable. I don't know about you, but I don't have cable anymore. I just have internet, and I have an illegal system that I may or may not have that has every single channel that ever existed, every single movie that ever existed, every single TV show that ever existed. And that's good enough for me.
Right.
But it's a bitch with sports because you got to find the right stream. It's always this kind of like back and forth. But the only reliable stream that I have found has been MLB, because clearly MLB just doesn't care about pirating. They're just like, you know what? People are watching. Who cares if they're pirating it or not? But yeah. So one thing that I wanted to talk about too, because you know there's certainly a lot of speculation around right now the NFL season, and you know. We do have official word from both the Players Association and the teams that everything is scheduled to start on time.
Yes.
That does not quell or erase the concerns of the players, which I'm sure you remember last Sunday, 90% of the players came out on Twitter, Instagram, social media, however you call it, and basically expressed concerns into how teams were going to be protected, how players were going to be protected. And the problem with it is that, Nick, we still don't know much about this COVID shit, man.
We don't.
Like, you know, people want to still think that this shit's the flu, and it's not. You know, even like the way I explained it to somebody, because I have a coworker, you know, he's one of those guys who thinks he's woke. You know, I watch YouTube videos. I read between the lines. You know, I
ain't go front.
But the thing is,
to an extent,
thing is, we both are like that, right? But to me, as a conspiracy theorist, I get offended when somebody comes forward with some bullshit ass.
I'm with you on that,
because you're making us look bad. You're making the people who are logical and trying to put two and two together look stupid. And one thing he kept saying was, "Well, have you ever seen a flu that?" And I said, "Listen, dude. What do we hear from doctors every year in the summer? This season's flu or this season's cold is going to be crazy. Why? Because every single year, these viruses are evolving and they're becoming this thing that we don't understand until we do understand it.
Right.
And that's the thing about COVID is we don't understand it quite yet. So the NFL is saying, well, we're going to have face masks for you guys. And it's like, that's not going to quell the concerns about COVID, right? How are you going to do it with practice? How are you going to do it in team meetings? How are you going to do it, you know, just workouts? How are you going to do it? It's just, there's so many logistical things that they haven't figured out yet. And I'll be honest with you, I don't blame the NFL on this one, because how could you have a plan for something that doesn't exist yet? So one thing that I do think the NFL is at fault for is they're really pushing for this season. Like, they're not giving up on the fact that we're playing this season. But the players have a say in this now, and the players seem to be worried about it.
They seem to be very worried about it, even though they came up with some small logical plan where, you know, we're talking about eliminating the preseason, which I still think is kind of a mistake. I still think you need at least one game before you go into the season. So that
opening week of games is going to be unbearable.
It's going to be unbearable.
Yeah.
Because there's no chemistry. Like, okay, practice and actually playing is not the same thing.
No.
You know, I mean, Jameis Winston was lighting it up in practice, but obviously we saw how much he struggled, especially interception-wise during the season.
Right.
So it's not the same, especially in Tampa's case. We have a new quarterback with new weapons and kind of, you know, some new pieces on our offensive line. You got to get that chemistry going, and it's not going to happen. But, you know, I'm with you though. I think with the NFL though is, even though it's kind of like, even though it's like, you know, they're pushing for the season. My thing is, you had more than enough time to kind of figure stuff out.
The most time of any sports,
right? Because pretty much everyone, well, like when you canceled hockey and basketball season, right around that time is spring training for baseball.
Right.
So you had to end that. Then baseball didn't even know if they were even going to come back. Hockey and basketball were determined to come back. It was just a matter of when.
Yeah.
But then you had the NFL, where it's like, okay, everything stopped in March. What's the worst thing we have to do? People, have to sit at home for the draft, but you still have enough time to try and figure things out.
Right.
And so that's why I feel like they're kind of, like pussyfooting around with, okay, what are we going to do? Well, we give you masks. But dude, like, you're going to tell me these 300-pound guy? Like, as a 300-pound guy myself, I wear the mask because I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
But if I had a choice, I wouldn't because it's hard for me to breathe in it.
But it's also like that mask, Nick, the reason why it works is because it's flush with your face.
Right.
And because you're still social distancing.
Right.
And because you're still practicing safe guidelines. Right. But when the point of the game is you have to push the person in front of you over, you're not practicing social distancing. I don't care what you say. A face mask on the helmet is going to do. I can't listen, dude. We're not doctors. We're not sitting here saying we know the science, but I do know that that's not enough to quell safety concerns.
I'm with you.
And they have to, like, Fauci came out and said the NBA is going to be the model that they use now moving forward as far as the bubble is concerned.
Right.
We're seeing Hollywood already use that type of bubble where Hollywood movies and TV shows are saying, how the fuck are we going to still keep doing our thing with this? And they're saying we have to go to the NBA model where we're basically all quarantined. We're all in this bubble for the same amount of time. Nobody leaves the bubble. It's going to be more hassle, more work, but it's safe. There's been 0 tests since of anybody in the bubble. Anybody who needs to leave the bubble has left the bubble and is coming back in time. Let's be honest. Pro sports athletes who catch this virus are going to be fine.
Yeah.
I'm not sure yet. I'll get the test back on Wednesday. I'm almost positive I had it 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fine within 48 hours. So the real issue here is not, oh my God, players are going to die. It's, hey, we as a society have a responsibility to make sure we don't spread this shit around and put other people in danger.
It's done got so bad that Toronto told the Blue Jays,
you can't play here.
You can't even play here.
And respect to them, though, because, again, that government does not have a lax. They don't see sports as, like, essential.
We're the only ones.
We're the only ones who see these sports. And, again, I'm selfishly a part of that group. I love sports.
Me and
you are both in the boat of, like, shit, bring sports back at any cost, right? But they realize that, listen, the Rogers Center is also a very prominent place in Toronto.
It really is.
And they would really have a hard time. First of all, I mean, there's a hotel attached to the stadium. But what are you going to do? You're going to have this player stay in the hotels for 4 months and then possibly not even really, because again, you're still traveling,
And I think that's what was the main concerns of the Canadian government. It's like, look, we kind of have this under control a little bit better than you guys do.
And you're going to fuck this up for us.
Right. And the last thing we need is some random team from
Baltimore.
Baltimore to come and ruin it. And they're absolutely 100% correct because, if we stay off non-sports for a second, I've seen many people outside of the US say that the only country in the world that is tripping about wearing this dumbass mask is us. Because all of a sudden we got these USA, A-OK, I know my rights. Hey, guess what? I'm just going to go off here and say this. I hate wearing my seatbelt. I really do. It's uncomfortable as hell.
It might even help during an accident.
It might help during an accident, but I hate wearing the SOB. I feel like it's against my constitutional right to wear this monkey ass seatbelt, but unfortunately, I gotta wear it, right? Yeah. So, what makes you think that y'all out there talking about, hey, you're doing crimes against humanity?
Don't tread on me.
Don't tread on me because I can't wear a mask. Like, dude, piss off, dude. Like, if I have to wear a seatbelt, you have to wear a mask. That's how I'm basically taking it. Because I despise wearing that SOB.
You know my favorite?
The only reason why I even wear a seatbelt sometimes is because I hate when the cars just, like, you would think that after 30 seconds of the thing going off, you just give up. I guess he's not going to wear it. Some cars are consistent about it. And I'm there's not music loud enough that will not take the ding off.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's like, dude, get over it.
And the funniest part, my favorite thing to do when people talk about that with me is I kind of play with them for a little second. Mm-hmm. I go, oh yeah, man, those rights, dude. What about Facebook? What about your data being collected if you have a phone number and you've ever input a phone number into an online form, they have your phone number now. Not only do they have your phone number, but you put your email address in there. They have your email address now. Oh, and by the way, your phone that's collecting cookies, they know exactly what you've been Googling over the last couple of weeks. And you know what? They're also going to be sending you ads for stuff that you've been Googling because, hey, by the way, we know it. Oh, and not to mention surveillance, not to mention. So again, when you talk to these people, they're so convenient about what freedom is, right? That, listen, dude, I love this country. I was born here.
Most definitely.
You know, I don't know anything else except America. So when I say this from a place of love and from a place of constructiveness, that we are not free, guys. We're not free. Okay. We live in a society where they take half of our paycheck.
Yeah.
We don't
Pimp us out of the paycheck.
We don't know what they do with that, with what they take. Like,
look up the definition of what pimping is, and I'm telling you, the government been pimping us for a long time.
Yeah.
I've been over here putting in 80 hours of work. I should be bringing in $1,000 easy, but I can't because the government pimps my paycheck before I can even spend the SOB.
And the funny part
you kidding me?
The funny part is you ask them where that money went, and they're like, oh, yeah, like,
and so about that 1,200 stimulus, woo, it's going to crash the economy. You're still pimping my paycheck during the COVID.
And they're still
I want my bread.
They're talking about more stimuluses now because the first stimulus wasn't good enough. Who
would have
guessed that 1,200 wasn't going to last longer than a month for a normal fucking
Meanwhile,
person
our Canadian brothers are giving them 20 to 35.
Not only that, you know what's embarrassing about us is those same people who talk about freedom have nothing to say about corporations stealing money from the stimulus check, the Lakers getting a small business, Yeezy getting a small business. Like, dude, you guys are so inconsistent. We're not talking about federal agents dressed as military going into Portland, pulling protesters off the street and putting them into trucks and driving away with them. And we are still sitting here talking about, I can't wear a mask because that's treading on my rights. Listen, dude, you live in this bubble that you think is free. And in reality, you've been pimped your whole life for the system.
And then to make it worse, in April, some people, the government are like, hey, I hate to break this down to you, but you just didn't pay enough. We're going to need a little bit more. For what?
Yeah.
You should have taken it out in the first place.
Isn't that funny how they do that where they say, listen, we're not going to tell you how much you owe. You figure out how much you owe. And if you didn't give us what we know you owe, we're not going to tell you what it is, by the way. You figure it out.
If I ever went to H&R Block to do my taxes.
Please don't. Yeah.
And I paid them $250 for them to tell me that I owe the government $1,000. This isn't even up for debate.
Yeah.
Wham! I'm throwing it. I'm like, that's your $250.
I'm clearing the desk.
I am clearing the desk on the most ignorant nonsense you could think of, and I'm walking dead out of there. You can put that video on TMZ, Facebook, YouTube. You
whatever
come
you
arrest
want.
me. You do whatever you want. That's how I feel. Get out of here, dude.
But again, it's like we're such choosy people in this country too.
I have just been informed that Jamal Adams may have just been traded to the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, wow.
Let me see if I can find
that boy Jamal Adams has been putting in work trying to get traded. I think the last straw was him calling out Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets. He just did that recently and basically said this dude's racist and all sorts of stuff. And, you know, we're starting to see it now. Dan Snyder.
Let's get into that real quick because I have a problem. See, this is at that point where people are like, well, you can't bring politics into sports, but it all somehow coincides with one another. Yeah. So let me make sure I got this straight. A lot of people are saying, oh my God, America's being so soft. We've been calling Washington the Redskins for almost 60 years. Why is it now a problem? Oh my God. Newsflash. It's been a problem.
Always been a problem.
The problem
offensive.
is now we have our eyes wide open to it, and finally people are starting to, when you dock a man's pockets, all of a sudden something's going to happen.
Yeah.
The only reason why Dan Snyder even remotely thought about getting rid of the Redskin name was because somebody told FedEx and Budweiser and every other advertisement to pull away from him if he didn't change the name.
FedEx said, we'll take our name off the stadium
in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And ain't no way in hell Dan Snyder's going to be like, ooh, man, that's billions. I'm already about to lose.
Even he's not that
7,
stupid.
8, 9 figures already.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay, fine, we'll do it. And then your incompetent dumbass had all the time in the world to figure out a name. And the best you came up with, we're going to just call it the Washington Football Team.
So the reason for that, Nick, is because, and this is why I love people in this country, no matter how much I shit on them. When Washington announced that, the next day, there was 45 different names that had been put in for trademark by other people to basically try and sell it back. Like, this is what I love about this country. I'm not a fan of capitalism and free market capitalism the way that we do it, but you can't complain when somebody does something like that. When you reward the system of money over everything, somebody's going to come up and say, fuck that. I'm going to go ahead and trademark 45 different names because if Dan Snyder wants to change his name, he's going to have to go through me. And by the way, the rumor is they couldn't get, so the name that they're going for right now is the DC Sentinels. That's apparently the name they're going for. They can't officially get that trademark for another month or so. So for the next month, they will be referred to only as the Washington Football Team. And it's funny you mentioned that because it's so funny how people like to bring up how soft people are nowadays while also being soft about a name change. Like a dude on Facebook said something like, well, we might as well change the Indians too. Go ahead. Change the Indians too.
I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Quick. The deal that I'm seeing on Adam Schefter's Twitter right now is the Jets have dealt Jamal Adams and a 4th-round pick in 2022 to Seattle in exchange for Bradley McDougall, a 1st-round pick next year, a 3rd-round pick next year, and a 1st-round pick in 2022. Wow. So 2 firsts, a 3rd, and Bradley McDougall for Jamal Adams and a 4th-round pick. That's pending physicals, and that also has to mean that Jamal Adams is pretty much set that he's going to re-sign with Seattle.
He'd have to sign an extension.
Yeah, right? Because there's no way you're trading that much for a guy that could become a free agent in, I think, a year and a half. I think he's got this year, 2 years. I think it's this year, and then he'd be a
he'd have his 5th year.
This,
yeah, he'd have his 5th year. Yeah,
so,
yeah. Well, that's honestly
trade,
Seattle. Dude. They made away pretty nicely with that because let's be honest, they're going to be picking in the 20s and 30 range. So you gave up 2 picks. Bradley McDougall is a pretty nice safety, not exactly not Jamal Adams,
right?
And the Jets made away pretty nicely. I think it's a win-win for both teams. Like Jamal Adams wasn't going to stay with the Jets. Let's be honest. And the Jets just, the Jets never learn. They never learn that when it comes to football decisions, you can't let outside factors make a difference, right? And all of this, we talked about the social justice sort of thing that's expanding not only in sports and entertainment, but throughout the world.
Right.
Everybody's becoming more aware. And that's a good sort of loop around to the whole Redskins conversation where people are just sick of it, dude. Like, they're sick of this marginalized, weird feeling that we've all been walking around with for the last how many years where, dude, every single person in the 90s knew that the Redskins name was offensive.
Exactly.
Knew that chief logo that they had was offensive.
Yep.
People like to use the Florida State as an example of, well, look at the Florida State. They are promoted by the Seminoles. That's completely different.
It's totally different. I'm glad you brought that up.
The Seminoles, if let's say, for example, the name of Washington was the Washington, I can't even think of a tribe right now.
Sioux.
Washington.
The Fighting Sioux.
Fighting Sioux.
I'm bringing that up.
So that is different than redskin, which is a offensive term, guys. Let's be honest about what redskin means.
Right.
It's the same thing as any derogatory term that was used in the 1800s and early 1900s.
Yep.
Just because we've become desensitized to it doesn't make it less offensive.
Exactly. And that's the problem.
So if you want to change the Indians, go for it. They have the most racist logo in the game. Chief Wahoo, racist as fuck.
Red-skinned Indian smiling.
Right.
And they've been complaining about that for the longest time. See, the for as much as pimps as they are, it was the NCAA that actually put their foot down. They said, all right, here's what we'll do. What we'll do is you can keep the name as long as the tribe that you're representing says it's okay.
Right.
That's why Florida State is still able to keep the Seminoles. The Seminole tribe in Florida said we're okay with them not only calling themselves a Seminole, but we're okay with the way that they represent the chief, because in no way do we find it offensive, because like, when the chief comes out and he throws the spear in, which is pretty much them representing for war. The Seminoles said they do it in such respect that we don't have any problem
100%.
with what they do. The chief comes out, he puts it in, they're ready for war. That's the only time they're okay with the war chant and everything.
Yeah.
South Dakota, who calls themselves the Fighting Sioux, the Sioux said, we're not okay with the way you represent us. That's why they can't be called the Fighting Sioux.
Yeah.
Illinois has barely been called the Illini, and you notice that Chief Illini Wack
that was a huge one. Yeah.
Because whatever Native American tribe that we have in Illinois said that we don't want you doing that with Illini Wack, and they had to stop.
Yeah.
So some of these people had backing of it, and some of these people didn't. When you have a team like the Cleveland Indians, who is now bringing out this, they're bringing out this meeting with Native Americans, to kind of get a perspective on what it is they want as their logo.
Not a red-faced Indian smiling red face.
Smiling, because if we know our American history, what exactly is he smiling about?
Right. Yeah, he's having a great time,
Like, hey, here's an American team that's calling us us.
And the funny part is, like, the Braves, for example. The Braves came out, like, the Braves is not an offensive name.
No, whatsoever.
But that tomahawk chop song that they do, they didn't have the blessing of the local local natives. And let me just also be clear about something. Just because something was done for centuries, decades, doesn't make it right. So, for example, calling Native Americans Indians, people don't realize that when Columbus came to this country, there was people here, by the way, lots and lots of people.
Shocking.
Here. And he wasn't the first person here. And when he got here, he thought he was coming to India. So he called the natives Indians. They're not Indians. They've never been Indians. We still call them Indians, and they still acknowledge being called Indians because that's just language.
Right.
You say shit for 100 years, and that's just but they're not Indians. They've never been Indians. They're Native Americans.
Right.
So again, we have to distinguish what the difference is between like just standardized language that we have to change,
right,
and what's offensive. Like, for example, the Atlanta Braves, they did a good job with that. They figured out, you know what? Our name isn't offensive. I think we do a good job with the local natives, but they have a problem with our chant. That's, we have to realize that the winners write history. So when you talk about native history and you talk about war chants and us, these are all offensive recreations of something that isn't real, that probably somebody who came with Columbus and his crew told somebody else, and they told somebody else, and that just got to where we are.
Exactly.
So do we live now? Well, I say this, do we live in a little bit of a softer, more introspective society?
Almost there.
Yes.
You can see and look no further than wrestling.
Wrestling and
look no further than wrestling. Well, wrestling, what's the number one thing that everyone says in wrestling? I used to watch wrestling until it got PG.
So, right, exactly. Yeah,
you get what I'm saying?
Started doing it for kids.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's the never-ending argument is the difference between Hogan and Cena. Remember when we were younger, it was say your prayers, eat your vitamins, USA, A-OK, red and yellow, Hulkamania, this and that. When Hogan turned heel,
it was Hollywood.
Exactly. It wasn't a lot of people sitting there talking about, oh my God, let's write the WWE because how dare Hulk Hogan turn heel? If John Cena would have turned heel,
oh my God,
during the PG reign, Vince McMahon would have gotten hate mail left and right. Why? Because as a guy that used to work with, I used to be a bus monitor for special needs kids.
Yeah.
They love John Cena. I knew about 3 or 4 kids. They had the wristbands, the shirts, the headbands. They love John Cena.
Right.
Could you imagine how heartbroken they would have been if John Cena would have turned around and turned on somebody and made him a heel?
Exactly.
They would have got a hate mail like him.
And I don't know why it's so hard to understand that not everyone is for everyone.
No, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be a John Cena fan.
No,
you don't have to be a Hulk Hogan. That's another thing that really bothers me about people who say that, people are soft now. No, people are smarter now.
Exactly.
People are more informed now.
Exactly.
Not to go too much into politics again, but, people like to act like George Floyd was the first case of injustice to black people that ever happened. And they're like, oh, I don't understand the big deal. And it's like, no. We're telling you that for the last 100 years, this is what this community has been dealing with. And the marginalization.
The water boiled over.
And again, I like to liken it to a balloon and filling balloon with water. You can fill a balloon up with water and it will stay nice. And you can have a water balloon for days and days and days and days if you want to. But if you keep filling that water balloon up, there's nothing that's going to stop it from popping.
Right.
No strong balloon can carry that. And that's what I see this as the water hose was in the balloon way too long. And when people like to say, well, rioting is just not this isn't the first time we've had rioting, guys. And rioting doesn't happen when shit is sweet or when shit's good. Rioting happens when shit sucks. And I'm not making excuses for rioters, but we have to put things into context that people are fed up. People are upset. People saw a man die on camera. They saw his last breaths. They saw him calling for his mom. And 8 minutes, almost 9 minutes of suffocating to death. And when you see that, it's different than hearing it because you and I both know it's not the first case where somebody has died at the hands of overzealous, over-aggressive, and power-hungry police officers.
Right.
And that's what the movement is about. And this new sort of spin on what Black Lives Matter is, well, they're socialists, they're Marxists, they want to destroy the country. I saw one of the San Francisco players because San Francisco, during their opener, a lot of them kneeled, including their white manager, Gabe Kapler, kneeled and basically said, don't agree with what's going on in this country, and I want to be on the right side of history. And one of their players, he stood, and he said after the game, I don't kneel before anyone but God. All right, man. That's what it is. They asked him why he had a problem with it, and he said, well, I think Black Lives Matter is this and this and that, and just basically talking Fox News propaganda. And at the end of the day, dude, I don't really feel mad about that guy. I don't feel any hatred towards that guy. That's a guy who he did it respectfully. He said, I don't agree with this movement. And to me, that's somebody that I feel confident if I was in the same room as that guy, I could make him believe that what he's talking about is wrong.
Right.
Because all it takes is a conversation in context.
A respectful conversation.
But it also takes, Nick, the acknowledgement of what the fuck we're talking about.
Exactly.
And everybody, again, to loop this back around, because I'm sorry, I don't want to go off on political tangents on this show, but we can't pretend everything happens in a bubble. We can't pretend that George Floyd happened in a bubble.
But you know what? At the same time, if you think about it, all the conversations we have all link into this, including sports conversations, religious conversations.
Yeah.
Like, for instance,
political, yeah.
I believe in God.
Yeah.
I believe there is a God. What I would never do is if I went up to somebody and I asked, hey, man, you believe in God? And they say no, oh my God, you're gonna go to hell. How dare you? Nah. If you want to have a conversation on why I believe him, I will have a respectful conversation. If you don't believe him, you tell me why, I will respect your feelings on this. But I'm not gonna be the guy to sit here and be like, oh my God, you can go to hell for that, because that's not how you try to bring somebody in, quote unquote, into the life, for lack of a better way of putting it, to try and believe in a God. It's the same way like with sports. The only fan base that I would have a problem with is if you came up to me and told me you like the Red Sox, because I hate them sometimes more than anything. I'm not doing that. I would try and sway you over to the right side, but that's it. But I mean, I think sports comes to a point where it's like you're going to get heated because, you love your squad. I love my squad. People love their squad and this and that and everything else, and everyone's going to have a difference of an opinion. And even I sometimes can get animated because I think, okay, it's like this. People are like, well, I have an opinion and I have the freedom to say what I want. Okay. Just because you have an opinion of something doesn't necessarily mean you should say it.
It doesn't mean it's legit.
It doesn't mean it's legit.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's that fine line, because we always want to use the Constitution. It's just like before we went off on the primest example, because again, outside of my own woman, I absolutely love AOC.
Yeah, me too.
I saw a video of something that she said, and I was 100% on it, and it drives me nuts as a Christian, that I hate the fact that sometimes when things happen in this country, people want to use the Bible to try and justify, and it pisses me off to a point of no end. Do not twist the Bible. Don't twist the Constitution or any type of document to try and prove your point, that what that you thought was right, when you know good goddamn well it's not right. That drives me more nuts than anything in this world. If you don't believe in something, fine. If you don't believe something, fine. If you don't like something, fine. But stop trying to twist all these.
I'm going to legitimize my hate with
exactly. I have a freedom of speech, so I have the right to say anything. Well, technically, I have the freedom to punch you in the face if I don't like what's coming out of your mouth.
And also, freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequence.
Right.
So, for example, people like to talk about cancel culture. That's really popular now, especially with right-wing people. Cancel culture.
Oh, cancel
where
culture.
It's like, oh my God. And here's the real thing. The only people who should be complaining about cancel culture are comedians and entertainers.
Yeah.
Here's why. Comedians, their job is to push the envelope.
Almost that.
Their job is to create nuance, create levity, create humor out of serious situations. And you don't always hit home runs on those. You're not always going to be on the point. So when somebody says something bad, like let me just use this as an example. And this is a touchy subject, but I want to bring it up because I feel like we're all mature enough to bring it up.
Right.
We grew up in the 90s.
Yes.
It was a very, very different world in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Facts.
You could say and do a lot of fucked up things that went by the wayside. That doesn't make it okay.
Right.
It just makes it that, to put it into context, to say the R word, or to say the F word, or to say any of these offensive terms, it pains me to say it. I said them in high school.
Yeah.
I said them. I look back at some of my Facebook posts and I cringe.
From like 10, 12
from like
years
10
ago.
years ago. And you're like, you were fucking,
you're an idiot. You're a young idiot.
So we're allowed to have those. You're allowed to have that, right? What you're not allowed to do, though, is spin it as that was okay. It wasn't okay. We made it okay because that was a society that we were in. And I'm okay as a man to say, you know what, dude? I had a lot of toxic traits when I was in high school. I said a lot of dumb shit. I thought a lot of dumb shit. I used to think dumb racist shit because that, as an immigrant in this country, son of immigrant, I never had a place growing up. I wasn't white enough for white people. I was not black enough for black people, Hispanic enough for Latinos. So there was no place for me in society growing up. So you take on these forms of stereotypes, racism, because again, there was certain things you could say to your friends back then that would be okay. they're not okay anymore.
Right.
And we have to realize that. And that's the same. It goes back to the conversation about the Redskins. Just because your grandpa loved the Redskins and he got the logo tattooed and he's got the HTTR on my arm and he's got the wallpaper and he's got his man cave set up with Redskins doesn't mean that was okay. Right. Was your father a bad guy for that? No. But I'm saying that if he can't acknowledge in his head that, you know what, that was offensive. I didn't realize it was offensive. And you know what, man? We all have to just be grown-ups, dude. Yep. At this point, we got to be grown-ups. Like, that's why I love AOC too. And I love some of these people that, you know, are not afraid to say, hey, this is fucked up. We have to address this. If you're not comfortable addressing this, you got to look inwards and figure out why you're not comfortable with that.
Exactly.
So,
you know, it's kind of like, it's almost like a KKK member that turned around and was like, man, maybe that stuff I was taught,
maybe that was crazy. Maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Wasn't right. You know what I'm saying? Because when you hang around people that spew that nonsense, they will beat it into you.
You buy into it.
You buy into it. Exactly.
100%.
Then when you start kind of venturing off on your own, it's like, what's the infamous story of the one guy that
the black guy who infiltrated
the KKK and turned one of the grand wizards and said, you know what? I don't agree with what they say anymore. Their views is wrong. Yeah. I've met plenty of black people who aren't what they say that we are.
And he said dozens of people turned in their hoods to him.
Yes.
And said, here. So, and another great example is tattoo artists in notorious white supremacist areas are saying, we will cover up your white supremacist tattoos for free. Because again, dude, I don't fault people for having fucked up viewpoints.
Right.
I don't fault people for having racist viewpoints.
Right.
I don't fault people for having bigoted viewpoints. What I do fault them for is the fact that they have blindsided themselves enough that they don't see what it is.
Exactly.
So when somebody, you know, again, going back to cancel culture, I hate that comedians have to walk on eggshells now. That's not good comedy. No. That's not good entertainment. Let's use Dave Chappelle as an example. He said a lot of weird, the best example, a lot of weird fucked up shit about trans people and gay people and this and this and that.
In
his last special.
Yeah, he did.
A lot of people were offended by that. Sorry, it's my first day. A lot of people were offended by that. And the reason why they were offended by that was because they didn't see that Dave Chappelle, his job is to push the envelope and say the most fucked up thing he can say.
Right.
You know, when he was talking about babies selling crack at 3 a.m. on the side of the road in DC, that wasn't real. Nobody ever looked at him and said, how could you praise a black baby selling crack? Because it wasn't real. Right. I made it up. And again, that's who cancel culture is really killing right now is comedy. But if you, as Joe fucking Schmo from Naperville, Illinois, are on Facebook talking about, oh, cancel cultures are worse. No, you're just being called out for your shit now and you don't like it. So a lot of conversations that have to happen inwards here.
Yeah, dude. I don't know, man. It's just,
I don't know why. I'm sorry we took this turn, but it's been boiling over in my head.
And you know, the thing is that, you know, we've done 2 shows, you know, over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, since we took the layoff.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of stuff has happened in the 6 months since we last did the show. You know, and
we didn't even get to talk about it on the first show.
And we really did. You know, we stuck to sports a lot, but I feel like now is a good time to get a lot of this stuff off, just for the simple fact of is that life without sports has become the blinder to a lot of stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
I am a perfect example of, I like me personally, one thing that drives me nuts, and anyone that's on my Facebook can see me go off about it, when people accuse me of being some extreme leftist. I'm not extreme left. I'm not far right. I don't represent anybody because I talk common sense. I don't like a lot of things that the left are doing. I most definitely don't like a lot of things that the right are doing. When you see me call Donald Trump D Trizzle, 9 times out of 10 it's me trolling.
D-Trizzy.
But here's the funny thing. Watch my comments.
Yeah.
Watch my comments. Like when the first stimulus package came out, I was giving D Trizzle praise. I was like, "Oh, look at D Trizzle giving us that bread."
Oh my God!
And the comments were just, he's not going to buy my vote, bro. I was just playing. Like I don't care about.
You can't even joke about it.
I can't even joke about it because everyone gets to their feelings, and you realize that watching, especially at this time where we should be talking the heart of baseball. We're in the dog days now of baseball.
Yeah.
Plus we're in and we're on the draft. Well, the NBA draft would have been over with. We should be talking college football. We're gonna talk the AFC East here in a little bit.
Yeah.
All that stuff should be, because it's now the distraction away from everything that's going on in the world. Because sports wasn't going on, now the whole country's eyes is wide open to a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
Now everybody's opinions coming out. But what bothers me the most is people that I was calling my brother.
Yeah.
Their comment scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like if you're, this is the one thing that kills me the most, and it's one of the most hypocritical things. If 1 minute you're claiming that the media is this and that, and I don't trust media sometimes as far as I can throw it, but then you're over here talking about the left and the right, bro, you're just as bad
feeding
as the
into
media.
the same thing.
Yeah. So now you're a hypocrite.
Yeah.
I have one friend, I'm not going to mention his name. He always, like the other day, I told him I don't vote. He's like, all this time you've been arguing with me, you don't vote? No, because what I do with you is you fly off the handle every time a Democrat does something you don't like. And what drives me nuts is, you just cried about Fuji hanging out at the game.
Yeah.
Weren't you just out with your girlfriend eating? I'm pretty sure you weren't social distancing then. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's the hypocrisy. You can be as far right as you want to, but don't be a hypocrite about it.
Yeah.
Like, I personally don't care, because I think my problem with what's going on in the country, we have old guys that have not made the adjustments to what our country is now.
We're all behind.
For some reason, keep putting 70-year-old, I don't even know where I'm at right now, guys, to lead our country.
We got two choices. One, old dude with dementia who's currently the president, or another old dude with dementia who wants to be president.
I swear Joe Biden has no idea where he's at half the time.
Half the time he's just thinking,
and Donald Trump,
is this an interview?
The only reason why I even love Donald Trump, he's like LeVar Ball.
He's a troll.
You never know what's going to come out of his mouth, and when he says something, you can't help but laugh.
And because he knows he has that type of effect on people now, so he's using it as a weapon. Which is true. It is true of the leftist media that they're more concerned with him having a slip of the tongue than they are of one of his people in the Department of Education trying to strip away public education and funding public education. Like, the conversation we should be having is about the damage that this administration is doing. And instead we're talking about Orange Man bad. And that's the issue. And I think we had a comment in there that said, if you don't think that cancel culture exists, you have blinders on. Cancel culture exists, but not for you. You don't have anything to do with cancel culture. Comedians, entertainers, public figures, they are a part of a cancel culture. But people talking about, oh, well, what about somebody who said something racist, them losing their job? That is 100% allowed and 100% a part of this system. If, for example, I went on a racist rant, somebody caught me on camera, and then my job found out about it, my job is allowed to fire me, or my job is allowed to keep me and have suffer the consequences of keeping me. So people misunderstand basic accountability with cancel culture. You, whatever your name is, who thinks you're suffering from cancel culture, you're not. You're suffering from delusion that you think that, oh my God, a comedian got called out for saying something bad 10 years ago, so cancel culture affects me. It doesn't. It's never affected you. Cancel culture is a real thing, and you conflating it with being held accountable for your actions is not helping the situation at all. No. So I just want to say, we can get off this at this point, because I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the social justice stuff that the NBA is trying to push, that the NFL is trying to push. But I'll be honest with you, Nick, I'm not a fan of Politicians, I'm a fan of policy.
I'm with you.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
So don't show me the names on the back of the jerseys. Show me what Tobias Harris and LeBron James are doing. Wanting people to be held accountable. The killers of Breonna Taylor be held accountable. The killers of Elijah McClain from recently held accountable. The officers that were involved in the George Floyd situation, all of them held accountable. Not just Derek Chauvin. All of the 5 people who sat around and watched that guy suffocate the other guy for 9 minutes, all held accountable. These are the types of actionable things we want to see. Do I love to see Black Lives Matter on a jersey? Yes. But am I going to go, yay, it's all over now. We get to put I Can't Breathe on a jersey. No, we need to see action out of it.
And on top of that, I think the biggest person who actually, I think is following your lead on that happens to be LeBron James.
Yeah, and the biggest head in the game.
Yeah, because LeBron James said, look, I don't need to put that stuff on the back of my jersey.
Right.
You can follow me on my Twitter. Think about it. LeBron James is so big.
Yeah. His Twitter is its own universe, basically.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's one of those guys. Okay, I would almost borderline LeBron James to what the Undertaker was in the WWE. A lot of people
Undertaker
say
documentary.
I've been watching bits and pieces, and it's amazing.
Really good. Yeah.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that the Undertaker had the greatest amount of respect in the locker room, where if he said something, you had to do it. You would follow.
And Draymond Green said the same thing about LeBron.
And that's how I feel about LeBron
Whatever
James.
LeBron says, we're following. Yeah.
When LeBron James speaks, no matter how much you love or hate him of anything he's done,
you're listening. Yeah, you're listening.
You're listening to what he's saying. Because LeBron James right now is, no matter how much you want to think he's not, until he retires, LeBron James is the face of the NBA.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah, he might be 3-6 in the finals and all, and we'll get into that in a sec. He can be all of that.
Talk all the shit you want about him sports-wise, yeah.
But when it comes to the social injustices that's going on in this world, when LeBron James speaks, LeBron James' words are so powerful that people have told LeBron James to just shut up and pick and dribble the basketball. If they didn't make those kind of comments, that means his words were not powerful enough for idiots like Hawk Harrelson, for instance, to make such a comment.
Or some, and also,
or what's the one white
Laura Ingraham?
Yeah, another one.
Yeah,
and I like Hawk, but he missed the boat on that one.
But it's also, you know, do you ever go and like see like a clearly racist old dude, and you look at them and you just go, how can I blame this guy who grew up in the 50s and 60s where this racism and racialism was embedded in him, right? Yes. So at some point, I know this is not a popular opinion, but I've had encounters with overtly racist, bigoted people. If you're over the age of 70, I'm just going to leave you alone. I'm going to let you do your thing because it's too late for you.
It's too late.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I give you a good story. Many years ago, I had a friend I used to go visit in Springfield. So I would go to her her local high school football games or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was one day we were walking back, and I could tell she was very upset. I was like, what's wrong with you? She's like, I'm getting mad because everyone's looking at you like you're crazy. And I was like, so I started looking around. Sure enough, you get these Karens.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, my God.
Black man.
So there was this kid who was holding his mom's hand, looked around. Or he turned around, was staring at me. So I must have jumped and did like a boost. And the kid jumped over in front of the mom. And I'm thinking to myself, man, teach your kid because your kid gonna run into some black folks one day and let him do that in front of them. What I just did to him isn't a piece to what's gonna happen. Cut that nonsense
And clearly
out.
you're teaching this person to be
Springfield, where I know there's black people down here.
Right.
So are we really gonna play this game right now?
And that's part of the issue is that I'm embarrassed for people on my friends list who have black friends, Hispanic friends, Asian friends, Indian, Arab, who support these policies and these viewpoints that directly affect people that look like they're friends.
I'm 100% with you.
And it's so disappointing because I'm not the type to delete you. If I know you,
I'm the same way.
If I know you and we're friends, I'm not going to delete you. Now, I do get a lot of random friend requests from this show and from a couple of other forums from people. And I look at their page. I'm like, bro, I don't know you like that. I don't want to see your shit.
Right.
But when you break it all down, we as a society like have a social contract to protect each other. The reason why we have rules and laws and regulations is because all of us, before we leave our house, have a social contract that we agree that we're not going to act like fucking fools. We're not going to kill each other. We're not going and the reasoning that we do have, one of my favorite arguments of dumb people is Black Lives Matter. What about Chicago? They kill each other all the time. And, it's my favorite conversation to have because it's an easy conversation and it's easy to dismantle when you're talking to somebody because you tell them about Black Lives Matter and how it's about accountability, making sure that Black people and people of color don't feel in danger from people who are sworn to protect them. And when they mention Chicago, when they mention Black on Black violence, you explain to them, or actually I asked them, what do you think that's attributed to? Why do you think people shoot each other in Chicago? Well, I don't know. They're aggressive. They're this, they're that. And it's all these kind of racist tropes about Black people being aggressive or Black people. And really what it comes down to is statistics show that violence is related to proximity. Meaning, if you fight somebody, if you shoot somebody, the main reasoning why you do that is because you're around them. And you live around them and you're from the same community. And what happens is when a community is given up on, like some Chicago neighborhoods have been given up on, they don't trust the police. They don't trust the government. They don't trust their teachers. They don't trust anybody.
They damn near don't even trust their own family.
And they don't trust their own family. And that's why, again, when you have this sort of lawlessness, everybody fights for themselves. Yep. And you create this group of disenfranchised, mainly young people of color who have bad socioeconomic backgrounds, did not have the family support, did not have the financial support that did, let's be honest, Nick, we talked about taxes earlier in the show. The reason why taxes are so important is because taxes go back into your community. And one of the things it does is, for example, we have a segregated society here, guys.
We do.
We've had it in America for a century. The Federal Housing Association, which is the official housing association of America, had deeply racist roots for over 50 years. They did redlining. You could see it in Baltimore. It's basically like all the white people in one area and all the Black people in one area. And what happens is when you create that, it creates an environment for Black on Black crime to be an excuse. And when you create this lawlessness, when you create this hopelessness, when you create bad socioeconomic situations where people who are police officers in Baltimore drive back to the other county, take their tax dollars, take all of their money, take it outside the Baltimore County and put it into Maryland where they're already rich, where the public schools are perfect. That's why it's so important for us to be informed currently and not just say, fuck Trump, fuck Republicans, to really understand what's happening in this administration, that they are dismantling basic premises of our society, that kids should be able to go to school and have the same education level. Yep. And people should be able to feel protected by the same people. So again, I don't want to go off on this tangent again, but I want people to understand that like social issues, the reason why people are speaking up is because we have the opportunity now to speak up. And once we are able to reach the other side and hopefully one day at a time, we're able to talk one person, to a second person, to a third person, to a fourth person, and really start this conversation, because the conversation hasn't started. What happens is everybody over here is in their own little echo chamber. Everybody over here is in their own little echo chamber, and we're throwing stones at the other echo chamber. Swear to God. And nobody wants to really understand what the other side is talking about.
Thank you. And that's usually my point when it comes to this. I'm like for all these people that are so far right, I'd be like, have you ever really sat down with a black person and actually listen to what they're saying
and why they're saying
what they're saying? Because if you honestly think, because people are honestly believing like black people have the same opportunities as we do. No, we don't.
Never have.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I know a classic story of a woman who filled out a resume, had all the qualifications for a job and everything, but her name was like Lakeisha something.
Yeah.
And they knew she was black.
The same resume with different names.
Turn around, put the same resume, say her name was like Sarah Jones. They thought she was white, called her up, offered her the job, and she went in there and said, these two are the same exact resumes. That has a black name, that has a white name. That still happens to this day. And if you don't think it happens to this day, you live in a bubble and you need to come out. You cannot sit there and say you have black friends and then think that we all have the same opportunity, because we don't.
Right.
And that's what drives me up the wall. Sit down with one of us. Let us tell you what's going on. Let us tell you how we feel. And maybe if you actually listen and not argue and think that everything is okay, you might get just a little bit of, sometimes
you might understand a little frustration. Why?
Right.
Yeah.
Just putting a seed in your mind and your heart can make a beautiful garden in the end.
Yeah.
But you just gotta listen, and that's what drives me nuts. Nobody listens. Everyone's on this side, like you said, on that side, and then it just sounds like two areas of idiots.
The frustrating part about it, Nick, is that there's 100 years of empirical data, research, studies. I mean, we have countless examples. You know, one of the main problems that I think, especially people on the right have with talking to people on the left, is it's an educational gap sometimes of you didn't read the same books that I've been reading. So you have an idea of history that isn't right.
Yep.
And I will say this, Nick, when people say this isn't a race issue, this is this issue. Well, people have to understand they're all intertwined.
Yep.
When people say, oh, it's the rich versus the poor, you're right about that. But what you aren't acknowledging is that over the last 400 years, black people have been systematically held back from being in the sort of haves. So when somebody tells you, "Well, what about Jay-Z? What about LeBron?" When you can say that,
I can't stand that either. I'm with you on that.
When you can say, like, my favorite guy about this is it Jason Whitlock is his name?
Yeah.
He's my favorite on that, because that's somebody who's very clearly virtue signaling to a group that he hopes will use him as a token example of, see, even this black man thinks that we're right. And at the end of the day, it's an informational gap. Candace Owens, yeah. Even Kanye,
Terrence Williams,
even Kanye to a certain extent.
Twins,
yeah,
Kanye.
The Hot Twins are my favorite because
they're the worst.
They get credit for being articulate. Like, see how articulate they are? It's almost like patronizing to think that two black dudes who are buff like that couldn't be articulate, like couldn't speak well. It's almost patronizing, even what they do to Candace Owens, you know, like, oh my God, Candace, you're so smart. You are so, and it's like, what? She couldn't be smart or this, or it's just like, it's maddening to me. And that's why, again, like the whole Kanye thing, you know, this is somebody that people look up to. And this is somebody that like people have like this, even I do. Like, I'd be lying if I didn't say Kanye was like this grandiose guy in my mind, because I just remember his albums having such an effect on me as a kid. And like, oh my God, I like looking back at some of my Facebook status, you're like, oh my God, I'm so like looking at the Kanye quotes, and just so you don't realize that this person has such a deep effect on you.
Right.
And then when they come out and say stuff like Harriet Tubman never freed slaves, slavery was a choice, you know, that you know, black people are
saying he almost killed his daughter and all that.
So you know, this is clearly, again, somebody with mental instability issues. I'm not going to pick on Kanye. He's just one example. But again, when you use a token guy and say, this is our guy, see, that's clearly
why can't you be more like him?
Or also, it's like my favorite example is, how come he's saying this but you're saying that? He's black too. Why doesn't he? First of all, like my favorite quote from LeBron is basically saying, me being rich doesn't change my skin color, right? So it's such a tough conversation to have with people who, again, the winners write the history books, right? So I don't know about you, we both kind of came up in different areas of high school, but did you ever learn about the Tulsa Black Wall Street massacre in school?
No,
I never learned about that. That seems like a pretty big historical event to
Very
learn
big
about.
historical event.
Did you ever hear about some of the rich black people who came out of slavery and basically built their lives and then were murdered, and prominent black people? We never learned about this type
They
of
teach us
stuff.
the same black people: Malcolm X, Martin Luther
Martin
King,
and
George
that's pretty much it.
Washington Carver, because he invented the
That's right.
peanut,
And
Harriet Tubman.
And my favorite part is, well, I'm not a huge fan of Malcolm X because of the whole violence thing. You know what? I'm not a huge fan of Martin Luther King. By the way, Martin Luther King was a socialist. Just for you right-wing people who love to bring up Martin Luther, because that's my favorite part about what happened with the riots, even going back to Ferguson, is all these virtue signaling white people. And it's not just on the right, it's actually on the left as well.
Yeah.
Mainly on the left, because these people on the left think, I'm on the right side of history, and I'm just going to show people that I believe in this, but I don't agree with rioting. I don't agree with violence. I don't. And my favorite part is they use Martin Luther King Jr. as a example of that, but they fail to remember quotes from Martin Luther King like riots are the language of the unheard, that violence is bred by violence, and that some of these quotes that he said towards the end of his life, which, by the way, they didn't really like him towards the end of his life very much. Somebody, I think the CIA ended up admitting to it, ended up killing that man. Not going to say who, not going to say why. And let's not make this a Democrat versus Republican thing. I'm pretty sure whoever killed Martin Luther King wasn't thinking about Democrat or Republican.
Nah.
So again, these little token examples that you like to use, be careful with that, man.
Yep.
Be careful when I love bringing up the fact that, you love Martin Luther King or Martin Luther King Jr. Man, I love him too. He loved socialism. He loved Marxism. That was something whoa. I'm not down for that. Oh, okay, Malcolm X. He loved violence. He loved self-defense. I'm not into that.
But that's what goes back to what AOC was saying, was stop trying to twist to prove your point.
Right. Yeah.
Don't use half of what Martin Luther King said to prove your point.
The convenient part. Yeah.
Let's dig a little bit deeper, because I'm sure you're about to get real uncomfortable with some of the stuff that came out of his mouth.
And it's almost never, Stokely Carmichael. It's never Dr. Cornel West. It's never, the millions of examples, James Baldwin.
Yep.
It's never these black people who had these like very obvious, prominent ideas back in the 70s and 80s. And again, it's crazy to bring up footage from the Rodney King riots.
Yes.
And almost put them side to side with what's happened in Ferguson and what happened recently with George Floyd. This is not a new issue, guys. This is not a new problem for us. And that's why you, as an American, whether or not you agree with what's going on, should be happy to be alive at this point, happy to be a witness to what's about to happen, because the tides are turning, unfortunately, for both people on the left and on the right. Tides are turning here.
Yep.
People are waking up. People are educating themselves. More and more people who have problematic histories and thought process are learning every single day. And I'm telling you, it's only a matter of time until we realize, rich people are really fucking the rest of us over. And once that happens,
if we all decided to finally open our eyes and realize, like, man, why am I fighting with him if we really on the same playing field?
Yeah.
It's a whole wrap. But we can't understand that because all we do is fight.
Just wait until Republicans find out that 70% of their taxes go to police people in riot gear. That in Chicago, 60% of our budget for taxes goes to law enforcement.
Yep.
60% and that's, again, social services, schooling, health. This encompasses everything. And so when people talk about defunding the police, we're not talking about giving the police $0 and saying, have fun with it. We're talking about, hey, we need money for schools. Hey, our teachers need money. Hey, we need more hospitals. We need more social services. So again, dude, this is like you said, this is kind of boiling over for me, especially over what's happened over the last couple of months.
Right.
And I'm just happy now that we're able to kind of get that off the table. And to bring this back around, the Redskins, like I said, DC Sentinels should be what they're going for right now. They're going to keep a generic, I guess, red, burgundy, whatever you want to call it, jersey scheme. And they're just going to play the first they said the first 4 weeks, it looks like, as Washington football team. So we'll see how that goes.
We'll see how it goes. Real quick, I still am going to let all the UFC heavyweight experts still think that Stipe can beat Ngannou when they do meet up for the heavyweight championship of the world.
I can't wait till he beats DC.
And I am letting you know that Ngannou's about to knock Stipe clean out when they meet up, because everyone's still coming at me with like, well, he beat him the first time and he did it rather handily. He didn't fight this Ngannou. Have you not been watching how awesome Ngannou has been?
Ruthless.
He's been ruthless. B, his takedown defense has been 38 times better since the
movement
Stipe fight.
And his
movement's better.
Footwork.
Come on, man.
Against Rosenstruik, I mean, that charge against Rosenstruik a good fighter.
He is.
He made him look like a little child in front of him. So
stop and think about it. DC isn't really necessarily a knockout artist. He's a wrestling expert.
Yeah.
But he still managed to beat Stipe.
Yeah. And Stipe went out cold in that fight. So people talking about, you can't say early stoppage. You can't say, oh my God, referee. No, he went out cold.
He was knocked out. So if DC's non-strong ass can knock out Stipe, I can only imagine when it got a stronger and much better Ngannou's going to do.
He almost took off Overeem's head with that hook that one time.
Hit him so hard, his toes were curled up. Are you kidding me now?
Oh, man. Bro, that's gonna be another interesting thing to see, because we have DC and Stipe 3 now. If DC wins, he's going to vacate the title right away. He's retiring
because he's not going to get knocked out by Ngannou.
And it's also one of those things that DC has already said he's retiring after this fight, win or lose. So when you put the division in, you're almost putting the division on hold to settle DC and Stipe. But what's going to happen is if they drive Ngannou any further out than they are, because right now they're like driving him out of the UFC, he might just say fucking go box like somebody, or something like that. He's weighing his options right now because the UFC has not been appreciating him, and among a lot of other fighters. There's a big thing with UFC pay right now. You know, the pay isn't that great for these guys. No. If you're not on the last 3 fights of the card, you're making basically $30,000 to show up and $30,000 to win. That's basically what you're making, right? That's after almost 6 months of work. You have to pay your coaches, you have to pay your gym, you have to pay your expenses. You're not making that much money in the UFC. So Ngannou might just say, you know what? You want to keep disrespecting me? I'll go fucking fight Mike Tyson after he knocks out Roy Jones Jr. in a couple of months.
The same Mike Tyson that I just learned some boxing tips from about 2 months ago.
Exactly, yeah. And Tyson was saying, like, he was saying, like, we can do this too if you want to. Like,
bro,
shit.
I am all for Fury versus Ngannou for the heavyweight championship of the world.
Yeah.
I will literally pay for that fight.
We can skip Anthony Joshua. We can skip Anthony Joshua.
You know what? Let's use Anthony, because I think Anthony Joshua and Ngannou have the same body type almost. So let that be like the stepping stone fight for Ngannou.
Why not?
If he knocks Joshua out, which I'm sure he would.
Yeah.
Because once again, Joshua just got knocked out by Andy Ruiz.
Yeah, and he did have a nice comeback, but you can't lose the way that he lost to Ruiz and then come back and then be like, okay, I'm back. Because let's be honest,
that's the same thing between Stipe and DC.
Yeah, that's true. But also, here's another thing. When it comes to the heavyweight boxing, right? Stipe can step in right away. He's not a guy that uses his legs much, right? Like, he's not a grappler.
Right.
He's not a guy that, so people trying to compare it to Conor Lee. Well, no, Conor, he did that for publicity and for money.
Yes.
Ngannou's doing it because, like, he really has those fists.
Right.
And it's actually better for him.
Yep.
Because let's be honest, if Stipe took him into the trenches with him and wrestled him for 5 minutes around, that might be tough for him because, no matter how good his body is, a wrestler's a wrestler, right? Yep. But if you're talking, hey, we've got gloves on, heavier, more padded gloves. And by the way, those hurt harder. Those UFC gloves, by the way, if Stipe put on a pair of boxing gloves, he might have killed what's his name? Fucking Overeem.
Yep.
Because those boxing gloves are basically like bricks after a little while.
Yeah.
So if you're Ngannou, he's in a good position right now to say, okay, you don't like UFC? I'll just go over here and make
Swear to
some
God,
money.
look, okay, so you're gonna pay me $90,000 to go against Stipe. I can make $30 million right now to go against Joshua.
And it's embarrassing because, Paige Van Zandt, for example, she says she makes more off Instagram posts than she does her UFC fights. Something's wrong with that, man.
Man, somebody's monopolizing somebody.
I'm not saying Paige Van Zandt is the best fighter in the world. I'm not saying she's a draw, but she's enough of a name. She's been fighting for 5 years. You would think that she would be able to escape this weird rut where you're only making $30,000 when you have generated millions for the company.
Right.
So UFC and Dana White, again, we talked about this before. They have a big debt problem right now. They were bought out for $4.5 billion 5 years ago. And right now, shit's not really, let's be honest. The UFC was the first sporting organization to say, fuck Corona. We're going to continue doing things.
True.
People want to give them credit for that. But let me be honest with you. They had to do that. If they didn't do that, the UFC might have gone under. That's real. That is a real thing, guys. If the UFC didn't do Yas Island, go out and buy that island in Dubai, or go out and try and make fights happen with no fans, they would probably go under.
Yep.
So all these people crediting Dana White for something he didn't do, I'll be honest with you. The Yas Island fights were pretty dope.
Right.
Obviously the Masvidal Usman fight was a really good fight. Masvidal, he had a 6 day notice, right?
Right.
That was a good fight. They've had a couple of really good cards, championship cards. So they've stayed afloat because they have to. And right now they don't have any plans on paying fighters more. And that's why John Jones is saying fuck you. That's why Jorge Masvidal is saying fuck you. Conor McGregor is saying fuck you. So right now, until things go back to normal and they can start making these, because let's be honest, the UFC, they pay the fighters mostly on what they make from the gates.
Right.
When you're not making anything from the gates, that changes the situation.
Now
right?
you're trying to use the advertising money.
That's like advertisement money. And by the way, that advertisement money was already going to infrastructure and it, by the way, dude, that wasn't cheap what they did in Yas Island.
Right.
Dubai, I mean, that's $1 billion, thing that they did there to buy the island, rent out the whole thing, basically make it so that all they basically control that whole island.
Right.
So it's cool. As a sports fan, I love it, but let's not give credit to people for what they don't deserve, right? At the end of the day, John Jones should be getting paid right now.
Oh.
He should not be complaining about money.
Nope.
Amanda Nunes.
Is a 2-belt champ.
2-belt champ, one of the most dominant UFC fighters in history of fighting. And she's in Brazil talking about, I might just retire. That's a problem. That's a problem. So again,
as much as I'm not a fan of Henry Cejudo, you had to understand, why would he come out when he won the what was he, the flyweight?
Flyweight, yeah.
And then he was the bantamweight champ at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But when he won the bantamweight championship, he was like, yeah, I need that Uriah Faber money and this and that.
Which is crazy because Uriah Faber is he's not even a thing anymore.
Yeah, I think what he did, the message of what he was trying to say and how it was delivered was totally way off.
Right.
He was like, I want to get paid like some of these legends that are out here, like they was getting paid, and I just won 2 belts. So what are we gonna do? So what do you end up doing the next time? He was like, screw it, I'm done.
Because he see what they did to Demetrius Johnson.
Yep.
They just said, fuck you, and traded him to ONE FC for Ben Askren. And Ben Askren's still stiff as a board from getting kneed by Jorge Masvidal.
You ain't lying, because ever since then, he got knocked out, 2 times after that?
And he couldn't even fight Damian Maia. There's a huge gap right now in, because here's the UFC's point. We're always going to be able to find fighters to come in here and scrap. Right. And that's true. But can you find a Jorge Masvidal? Can you find a Conor McGregor? Can you find John Jones? Can you find Amanda Nunes? No, you can't. These are people. Henry Cejudo earned that. And let me tell you something. Henry Cejudo is a smart man. Yeah. He has a smart manager. He knew exactly what he was doing retiring. He'll be back in another 3 or 4 months. It'll be a big fight. It'll be a better draw. But this idea that only Conor McGregor draws is done now.
Yeah.
Jorge Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman made more than Khabib Conor did. That's a huge deal.
And I think a lot of that's because of the the momentum that's behind Jorge Masvidal.
True. And it's all, but it also, people saying, well, of course, there's no other sports on. That's not exactly true, first of all. And second of all, what does that have to do with, like, for example, there was a card with, I forgot who, a Volkanovski Holloway.
Yep.
They were on the same card as Masvidal and Usman.
Yeah.
The previous card they were on didn't even touch a fraction of that.
That's true.
It doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the fights. They keep saying, well, if we keep putting good matchups out there, people will buy.
Weren't they on the same card as Usman and Covington?
Covington, exactly. Yep. So that's another thing the UFC does is, like, they're trying to group these fights in a way that, like, makes it entertaining to fans. I'll give them credit. They've done a good job of that. Like, they had that one night where it was like all light heavyweight championships. Yep. So you got to see all the light heavyweight contenders, and now you saw them all on the same night, and now you had this idea of them. I like that. That's smart. But they keep thinking that because they're going to put on a ton of events this year. They're going to keep putting on events, probably another 30 events for over the next year.
I think there's a UFC Fight Night tonight.
It is. Yep. Yeah, it's Till versus Whitaker. So that should be a good one. And that's going to be one where, honestly, the winner of that, because they already have Paulo Costa and Israel Adesanya set up now. So Costa's finally healthy. So I think in another 2 months, they'll do Costa versus Adesanya. And the winner of that one will honestly be a little bit more inclined to be able to fight either. Because Till, here's my thing about Darren Till. He can beat Whitaker up if he wants to, but he's had a couple weird knockouts, like the knockout against Masvidal.
Yeah.
He went out pretty quickly. So his chin is a little bit suffered, because that's what happens when you want to try and win a war every single time you hit the octagon. Your head's not going to keep up. Ask Chuck Liddell, ask Randy Couture, ask some of these guys who have been in wars. Your chin suffers greatly no matter how much time off you have.
Especially Chuck Liddell, because after he got knocked out by Rampage, he barely beat Keith Jardine, and it just went south from there. He was getting knocked out.
He got jabbed out by Tito in a
fight that nobody cared about, because Chuck's like 50-something, Tito's like 50, and it's just like they fought at Bellator thinking that they were going to get I didn't even know. That's just the same way I feel about the one that was always fighting Silva. Oh my God, Sonnen.
Oh, Chael Sonnen, yeah.
Every time I see Chael Sonnen fight on Bellator, he's always losing. I'm like, why is he still fighting?
And the really sad part is it's money. It's 90%. I mean, Chuck Liddell, he came to Dana and he said, hey, I want to fight again. And Dana said, I'm sorry, I can't have you in the UFC
anymore.
Hell no. And what he basically said was, okay, well then give me $50,000 loan. That's what he told Dana. Dana said, I'd be more inclined to do that than to give you a fight.
Right.
So at this point, that's what just goes to show you, right? Like, Brock Lesnar didn't make a ton of money in the UFC.
No.
Even some of these guys who are considered Mount Rushmore guys never made a cent more than they should have. So
Ken Shamrock.
Okay,
let's bring this up. All the UFC stars that went to wrestling. Ken Shamrock.
Sure.
Dan Severn. Brock Lesnar crossed over.
Yep. I mean, CM Punk probably made more than fucking Lesnar did. I mean, that's the sad part about it is the UFC, because it's such a shticky, gimmicky type thing, they're able to pull these weird moves where, like, CM Punk, people respected the UFC so much less after CM Punk because Mickey Gall went in there and just completely tore him apart. And you saw that, like, this gimmick that they were trying to present as if, like, he's a tough guy, so he'll make it no matter what. And I respect CM Punk to a certain degree because he took his lumps and he said, maybe this shit isn't for me.
Right.
Like, maybe I should just move on.
Right.
So respect to him. But, again, even CM Punk, like, he's probably had to put some money in his bank account.
Yeah.
Like, when you leave the WWE like he did, and when you have a falling out specifically with your previous employer, you need money, bro. Like,
and the funny part is, dude, it's like everyone that has at some point not gotten fired, but has left the WWE to try and find greener pastures somewhere else, find their way back to the WWE.
True, yeah.
Classic example. Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, he was on top of the world, and then he ended up leaving. He left. He was like, I'm tired. I don't know what happened, but he ultimately just left.
Yeah.
And that's when they started putting The Rock on. And then once he started realizing that money not coming in, he needed to catch up on the bills. Now all of a sudden he was back. The same thing with Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar at one point was on top of the world, but then all of a sudden he wanted to rekindle his dream to become a football player. That didn't work. Then he becomes the heavyweight champion in the UFC, but like you said, isn't making that bread. Now you got a 5-year, $30 to $40 million contract with the WWE, and you don't have the same workload as everybody else.
Right.
So you can win the WWE championship, go away for 2 or 3 months.
You don't have that grueling travel schedule.
Right. Yeah. Hang with Sable, your wife.
Right.
Hang with your kids.
Yeah.
You're up in Minnesota chilling. And then when the major pay-per-views come out, yeah, man, I got a good 2 months in me. Yeah. And just come back whenever you want to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And CM Punk is almost in the same boat where he had the huge fallout between him and Triple H.
Yeah.
Leaves the WWE. Not only did he get embarrassed in the UFC, but then in a match between The Miz and Daniel Bryan, in the first minute and a half of that match,
they recreated
his loss second by second.
That's hilarious.
So then they threw a jab at you.
Yeah.
And then
he still came back.
And then a lot of people don't know this. In a Raw in Chicago, they did another jab at CM Punk because CM Punk had a lawsuit against the WWE.
Yeah. And
they low-key called CM Punk out by the doctor that he had the lawsuit against. And a lot of people didn't catch it, but I caught it. And I was sitting there like, dude, they just did another jab at CM Punk again.
Yeah.
Here in Chicago, where all they do is CM Punk chants all day.
That's so funny to say because you would think, the way that people normally see sports as like, if I like this person enough, they will get a shot at it. And that's completely gone away now. Right. And it's like even the WWE, like my dad is a WWE fan. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because when you pick his brain, he's an older guy.
Right.
But he doesn't enjoy it anymore. And he said like since the fans haven't been there, it's
not the same.
It's a show.
Yeah.
It's an edited, like I forgot what pay-per-view in specific it was, but I think it was AJ Styles and The Undertaker were in like this kind of like
WrestleMania.
Weird, it was a weird match where like it was almost like a movie.
Yeah,
like they kind of scripted it.
Yep.
And he was like, it just felt weird. It didn't have the same feel to it. Like even if there were no fans, but it was a live feed, it would still feel better. But because there were so many cutaways and then, a stuntman came and jumped into this. And so even him as a sort of a simple fan, he sees that and goes, that's not cutting it, Yeah. And now you see the WWE a couple months ago say, yeah, we had to let go of like, I don't know how many employees they had to let go of. You're starting to see that like, it really is a money driven thing that my like for this certain person has nothing to do with whether or not they're staying around.
I mean, think about it. This is the same WWE who cut the feed off when they were in Saudi Arabia.
That's right.
Because the prince owed Vince like $500 million and he didn't cut the check.
$500 million.
So he said, okay, I got something for you. And cut their feed, but all the Americans, because I saw that whole Super Show. I happened to be home. I actually had the day off and totally forgot that it was even on. And I watched it, and for what it was worth, it was actually pretty decent.
Yeah.
And they held back the plane because the prince was like, hey, man, why you cut my feed? Hold up. He said, cut my check. Dude, over $500 million. Like, Vince McMahon is no idiot.
You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
Man,
right?
I swear.
Like, yeah, so, and that's what I'm saying. I'm just going to say this. If I ever need money, I'm not going to go to a Saudi prince because those motherfuckers don't fuck around. That money's expendable to them. They just want to have power over you. That's what it is. Yeah. They don't really even care. They're like, what? How much you said? $500 million? That's okay. We're good. That's like my son's college.
You know who I am?
That's my son's college fund. Right. Like I don't really give a fuck about that.
You know how much I'm worth?
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Vince, and that's another thing. Vince is in serious financial dismay right now.
Oh, most Steph. I mean, come on, dude. Think about it. Like, you don't have those ticket sales,
right?
And here's the funny part: the WWE shop, they had Extreme Rules was this past Sunday.
Yeah.
So they're saying for tonight only, buy one t-shirt, get one for $1, 40% off tees. SmackDown was last night.
For one night only. Yeah.
Same exact sale.
That's like that
Tonight only.
That's like that furniture store that's like going out of business for 4 years. Like we're going out of business.
Art Van Furniture
Everything
is going to
must
be
go. And it's like, you guys have been going out of business for 5 years.
And Art Fan Furniture is going to be that is going to be that guy, because Lord knows that I thought about that. I'm like, man, Art Van Furniture going out of business. I could already tell you that furniture expensive. My GM said he went in there to look for like either it was a couch or a rug or something. $2,500.
You're lucky.
Hell no.
See for $1,200 now.
I swear, like hell no.
That's the whole thing about. That's why I bring up the financials, because remember they had a deal on the table, I believe, that would have been a TV deal that would have been more money, but they decided to stay with the format that they were at and move to Fox, I believe. I think they moved SmackDown to Fox, right?
Yep.
So I think the deal was they took less money with Fox to get more eyes and more asses in the seats, and then Corona hit, and that just completely
killed the game.
Over. So
it killed the game.
They're going to have to adjust. And honestly, I see them doing something like a Fight Island type thing, where maybe
that's kind of what they're doing.
They're trying to do it outside though, right? So that they can have people, because what I'm hearing is they're going to try and go. They're going to try and go to like these Rose Bowl type stadiums with huge capacity. Put 15% capacity in there, right? Even if you're at the Rose Bowl, what is that? I think 70,000.
It's like 70,000.
70,000. If you put $15K in there, that's still a really nice
$40 a ticket.
At $40 a ticket, you still can socially distance. You still can go with your family and stay close to your family, and you're in an outside environment. So the need for a mask is maybe a little bit less needed. But the real big thing right now is that I'm telling you, if you want to go to a sporting event in the near future, you better have masks ready. You better have hand sanitizer ready, and you better be ready to not be close to anybody but your family.
Yeah.
Like, we have to start to realize that this shit's different now. Whether or not we like it, whether or not you feel like it's treading on your rights or not, we got to adjust to this shit, because it's the days of bumping elbows with the dude next to you in the bleachers are gone until we figure this shit out.
Seriously.
So get rid of this mentality that, like, you know, people complain. Listen, I want to go back. Trust me, dude. I had an 18 game package to go to the White Sox games this year. I'm devastated. I can't.
And we got screwed out of the too, man. The Field of Dreams game.
Yeah, exactly. And
nobody wants to see the White Sox versus the Cardinals. Nobody.
Well, I still don't understand why. Is it because logistically the Yankees weren't going to be able to safely get to Iowa? I don't understand.
It's because the way that they did the schedule, the only out of division of the AL East we're going to be playing is the NL East.
Oh, okay,
so the West is playing the West, the Central's playing the Central, and the East is playing the East. That automatically eliminated us.
They always, for some reason.
That is such BS.
Just cancel it or just delay it to the next year.
Why not?
Next year.
Nobody wants to see the Cardinals versus the White Sox in the Field of Dreams game, because ultimately, nobody cares about the Cardinals. I'm just going ahead and say this, okay?
Only people who care about the Cardinals are if you love the Cardinals or if you hate the Cardinals, and that's basically Cardinals fans and Cubs fans. Like, right. Those are the only two people who care about the Cardinals.
But I want people to kind of step out, because, like, first off, I want people to understand that even though my affiliation in sports is majority New York, I have nothing against the Cubs or the White Sox. I prefer to go to, guaranteed rate field, because the food's better, the parking's easier, and getting out is a
better experience. Yeah,
flipping Wrigley, and I can pee in peace in a guaranteed rate field
without a trough.
You know, I mean, what is going on, dude? Freaking Ricketts are worth like $12 billion. You can't fix this bathroom situation.
And did you see the locker rooms that they create? Like, there's nothing cooler to me than in college football when they have those really dope locker rooms.
Yeah.
But in the pros, is it really necessary for you to have a state-of-the-art DVD flat screen? Bro, just...
After a long 9-inning game, hey man,
I'm gonna go back.
We're gonna walk over to a Cubby Bear, grab some beers. You want some? Nah, man. I'm just gonna go ahead and fire up the Notebook on this state of the art. Man, I don't feel like leaving, man. What? Come on, man. Stop being stupid. Like, really?
And remember how long that construction took too for the Cubs? It was a 3.5-year construction job that shut down businesses all around Wrigley. And now they don't really have much to show for it. They have the new bullpen, they have the new clubhouse and the scoreboard, but otherwise didn't really change much demographics.
And the never-ending fight with the rooftop owners, which I find amazingly greedy and stupid on the Cubs part, but whatever.
And you know what the hilarious part is? Those rooftop owners are selling like hotcakes right now because that's the only time you can watch the game now. So joke's on you, the Ricketts. And that's the funny part. The Ricketts, they could have been an example of a team that said, you know what? We got so much fuck you money that it's okay to give these people some things, right? Instead, they said, nope, we're not. And by the way, they closed the checkbook for Theo too.
They sure did.
They said, hey, this year, roll with what you got. Buy a bunch of these cheap assets, Jason Kipnis and Josh Fegley and all these guys, because we're not opening the checkbook. And by the way, if this doesn't go well, we might not have Chris Bryant. We might not even have Rizzo. And we definitely are going to be getting rid of Jason Hayward, getting rid of John Lester, getting rid of some of these expensive contracts. So at the end of the day, the Cubs are sort of back to square one if shit doesn't work out this year. Like, this is a really important year for the Cubs this year.
I think, okay, the blessing and the curse of the Cubs is the 2016 World Series, if we're going to be able. They sold the farm, and rightfully so.
Glaber.
That is about the pinnacle of the trade.
Yeah.
You traded your number one overall piece in your entire farm system for Aroldis Chapman.
For a 6-month rental.
Who Joe Madden damn near ran into the ground.
Yeah.
Then the ultimate insult was that Aroldis Chapman said, I really didn't even want to be here in the first place.
He told him I'm going back to New York.
And went back to New York.
Yeah.
So basically, you really only got, what was it? Adam Warren in the deal. Because the deal was Adam Warren and Aroldis Chapman for Gleyber Torres. That was it.
And Glaber's looking like he's going to be a top 5 player.
Glaber's now the starting short. Gleyber Torres was so good, they told Didi take a hike, and they put him in there so that LeMahieu and Tyler Wade could both fight it out at second base.
And even more so, like, was Chapman the catalyst to them winning the World Series that year?
No.
Probably not. Did they need a closer that year? Absolutely, they needed a closer. But was Chapman the absolute? No. But they thought...
Remember, he gave up the game-time home run in Game 7 of the World Series.
And they got bailed out. Got bailed out after that. But really, the end result is when you have a team that's starving for a championship, right? No matter how... Like, let's be honest. If they gave up 3 of their best prospects, and all 3 of those prospects are going to turn out to be Yankees for life, they probably still would have taken that for that one championship.
No,
right?
easily.
So I'm not going to hate on them for that. But if you're a Cubs fan and thinking that the future's bright, look again.
Exactly. That's why it says the blessing and the curse, because now you're so starved to get another one.
Yeah.
You then traded to your crosstown rival, Eloy Jimenez.
Yeah.
And a little package.
And he's looking pretty nice
to bring in Jose Quintana, who barely can even start the season with his injury.
Yeah, and Dylan Cease is looking really good. Another guy they got out of that trade. So, let's be honest that right now at this point, the teams that have sucked for a long time and built assets are now the teams that are doing really well. The Astros, the Cubs, obviously, as of late. And let's remember that the Yankees were not very good for 2.5 years, even though they were staying up and down in the standings. And what did they do? Like you said, they went into a youth mode. They said, okay, you know what? Let's bring up this Judge guy. Let's find out what we can get out of them. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, the assets that they had collected in that 2.5 years of trading here or there, getting rid of contracts here and there, now are all of a sudden flourishing.
Got to Game 7 of the ALCS playing with house money.
When they weren't even expecting to make the playoffs that year. So you have teams now who are giving you examples, and the White Sox are a perfect example of that, and they did win right now 10-3 against a really good Twins team. It's an example of, like, if you're not winning now, you better be thinking about later, right?
Right.
And that's what the Cubs are going to be doing this year. I'm not sure what the trade deadline looks like in particular. I don't even know if trades are going to happen. Yeah. But that might be bad news for them, because if they have a tough, let's say, 20-game stretch here, it's only a 60-game season.
Right.
So a bad 20-game stretch is like good luck, even with 16 playoff teams. That's the crazy part. There's going to be 16 playoff teams this year, but if you have a bad 20-game stretch, let's say you lose 16
9 and 11.
Yeah. Even let's say you lose 15 out of 20. No matter how much ground you make up, it's almost like it doesn't matter because the season is so much shortened and it's such a highly impactful. Every game is impactful. Like that's why this game was huge for us to win, because if you go 0-2, as crazy as it sounds, you go 0-2 in a 60-game season, it's almost like going 0-8 in a 162-game season, right? Like you start off 0-8 in a 162-game season, it sucks. It's a bad start.
Going 0-2 in a baseball season is like equivalent going 0-5 in the NFL season in a 60.
Oh yeah.
Season.
Oh my God.
Like at that point, you're kind of like
you're thinking about what can I do to? We might just bench this guy because we want to see what we got in this guy, and you can't even do that this year.
Let's bench Eli to bring in Daniel Jones, basically.
And the fucked up part is you can't really even do that this year because it's only 60 games. So is it really worth it to bring up your star prospect? There's no minor leagues this year. That's another shitty part. You don't like. Nick Madrigal, a couple of the young guys are getting sent down now. They'll be up in the next 8 days just because obviously it's a contract thing. It's an MLB service time thing.
Right.
But you don't have anywhere. Like part of the reason why they want to bring up Nick Madrigal is like, I don't want him to sit around for 6 months now. So, we're in a situation now where player development and everything like that is stunted this year. This year, it's like, hey, we all have a shot this year, by the way. Like a team that I love this year, the Reds.
Yes.
Watch out for the Reds this year because people still thinking it's going to be the Reds of old. And they went out and made some moves this offseason, and they've got pitchers, they've got a bullpen, and they've got hitters.
Yeah.
So teams like that, and we saw with the Nationals last year, it takes one good run. Yep. The Nationals, if we were going off of last season in this season's format, the Nationals wouldn't have made the playoffs because they were so bad the first 60 games.
And remember, the Nationals went from almost going to trade Max Scherzer to winning Game 7 of the World Series.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
And that goes to you saying about having that one good run, like they got hot at the right time.
Right.
Like a team that was notorious for doing that for a little while were the Colorado Rockies, where they would be like 7 games out with 18 games to go, and they would just catch this 15-3 hot streak right into the wild card game, but then they would end up getting swept by the.
It's like Oakland too.
Yep, they're like another prime example. Yeah. So you're right. The game now is different. It's balls to the wall, no pitch count. Like Kyle Hendricks yesterday. If this was March or April when the season was going to start,
he would have went 7.
No way in hell he's throwing a 9 or a complete game like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And you have 15 pitchers this year too. Yep. So it's like, why? Why am I, you know what? The White Sox yesterday, Lucas Giolito didn't have the greatest start, but they pulled him, with like 80 pitches. And in my head, I was like, why do that? But at the same time, it's like, listen, you need your starters this year.
Yep.
You need your starters this year. So maybe it's not a bad idea. Okay, you know what? It's a bad start, Lucas. Take the day off. We got 10 pitchers in the bullpen ready to go, and just try and get what you get. And obviously we didn't get the win, but happy to get the win today. Dallas Keuchel looked pretty good from what I've seen. I'll watch the game again later, but yeah, man, I just right now I'm excited for baseball. But next week when we come in, it's gonna be basketball's almost right there.
Yep.
NHL's going to be exciting this year. I'll be honest with you. It's going to be exciting because your team has a 3-game play-in, and if you win that 3-game play-in, it's anybody's season. Yep. So the Blackhawks, I'm not even thinking about the Blackhawks right now because I'm like, they have a chance to prove to us in the first 3 games against the Oilers that they can move on. The Oilers, not the worst team in the league, but they're definitely beatable for a team with as much experience as we have.
True, but they're also pretty decent too.
No, they're very. I'm saying they're and defensively they're really good, and defensively we're really bad. Yeah. So, but my thing is like again, it's exciting as a fan to watch the team that we watched earlier in the season that had no chance of going anywhere a substantial. But now you give us a nice 3-week stretch here, we could get a Stanley Cup here. So. And again, on any fan who's worried about, well, there's going to be an asterisk next to it, you're going to be living proof of why that was still the hard. This is going to be, I love what LeBron said. And no, it was Giannis who said it. This is going to be the toughest championship that anybody ever wins in the NBA. Nobody's had to endure anything like this bubble. Let's remember, they already played 60-plus games earlier this year. They just took a 4-month hiatus and now they're back and they're going to play another potential 60 games. So, we're looking at unprecedented shit here and we're just able to witness this. Let's just enjoy it. Let's not pick at it. Let's just enjoy it.
Right. It's the best you can do at this point. But yeah, that NHL format is actually, people clown Gary Bettman for being the worst commissioner in sports, but I think this is the best thing that they could have done because at the same time, as easy as could have been like, well, if you would have just played better in the season, you'd have been in the playoffs.
Start with the playoffs,
but you're looking like, man, some of these teams were really getting hot, and the Rangers benefit from it. And you're like, okay, we'll get you the 3-game series. We'll see. Because I think of all the sports, I think the NHL is the most wide open because we've seen, like, I hate to be this dude, but when's the last time the Lightning have never won a Stanley Cup, have they?
No, they went to a Stanley Cup.
They went to one, but they never won one.
Yeah.
But it's the same team who last year won the President's Cup
and was one of the best teams in history.
Out of the first round.
One of the best teams in history of the NHL. Yeah.
This is the same Lightning team that never should have been in the Stanley Cup the year y'all beat them. That should have been us, but that's another story for another day. But
even like St. Louis last year, like St. Louis was one of the worst teams for the first 3 months of the season. Next thing you know, hot streak, get a couple of guys here and there. Boom, you win a Stanley Cup.
And they basically beat the Boston Bruins, who are freaking, and it kills me to say this, but they're amazing, dude. Like,
they were like the Avengers versus,
Swear to God. And they, somehow the Blues managed to come out and pull it off. So I that's how I look at that too. But I'm actually excited about this NHL playoff. I think it's going to be really good. And I'm just glad stuff is back, man, because
we might as well. I was thinking we might as well because when you talk about it next week, we're gonna have MLB is gonna have like a good weekend in.
Yep.
Basketball is gonna start up the following week.
Yep.
NHL will starting the following week.
Day.
You're right. That day.
So that day we come in to do the show. The NHL will be going.
Got it. And then 2 weeks after that, so like end of August, that's when we'll start to see the first football stuff too. So we'll be primed and ready. We're going on over to. You want to do the East right now, or you want to save that for next week?
We'll save it for next week. So we'll do the East and the North next week.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, let's and we can even honestly. We could even swing multiple divisions, you and I, with that. So, but yeah, no, because we did have those technical issues at the beginning too. Again, thank you for bearing with us, and everybody who commented, viewed, liked, shared. We appreciate y'all.
And the Knicks are on the rise.
Yes.
Once we get LaMelo Ball, and everyone's like, Evan, LaMelo's got to go to Chicago. Shut your ass up! It's not happening. He's coming to New York. The LaMelo Mitchell Show. The Melo Mitchell Show kicks off in New York with guest starring R.J. Barrett and the rest of the crew.
The bilingual R.J. Barrett, my favorite.
Hell right.
All right. Yeah. So appreciate everyone. We'll be back next week, and we should have our weekly schedule back, back and running. So next week's going to be jam-packed. So I'm telling you guys don't want to miss that show. Anything else?
Nothing else. I'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
Peace.